The world of Pokemon may look like it did in Blue and Red, but your adventure through the yellow version of the game will present you with many new challenges to overcome. With Pikachu at your side, see if you have what it takes to become a Pokemon Master. Hey everyone, I'm the Boxhead Baron, and today we're going to take a look at Pokemon Yellow version and all the differences that were implemented between it and Red and Blue. Specifically going over all the differences as they're highlighted in the official Nintendo Power Player's Guide. This can kind of be considered a prequel to my Pokemon Crystal version video, so if this video piques your interest, maybe check that one out too. And while I'm shamelessly plugging, please like, comment, and subscribe. We're currently on track for 500 subscribers, and I would really like to get there. Like Nintendo Power's Crystal version Player's Guide, the Yellow version Player's Guide also covers the other two games in this generation. So this book goes over everything for Red, Blue, and Yellow versions of the game, which makes looking at the differences pretty easy to spot. Mid-gen Pokemon releases. This is it, guys. This is the game that started the trend of releasing a third game after the first two initial releases in each Pokemon generation. This is something that Nintendo would do for every generation up until Generation 5, which is the black and white one for those who don't know. Because it's the first, it is quite a bit different than a lot of the other third games. Specifically, Pokemon Yellow was designed to track a lot closer to the Pokemon anime, which brings us to our first real big change: new starter Pokemon. In Pokemon Yellow version, you do not get to pick between Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander. Instead, like the anime, you are forced to use Pikachu. And interestingly, your rival uses Eevee in this game. Not only is Pikachu your starter though, he also will follow the player around like Ash's Pikachu does in the anime. This is the first game to have this mechanic, and has become a fan favorite ever since. And also, like the anime, you are not allowed to evolve Pikachu. That's right, he's stuck as a chunky little guy forever, all the way from Pallet Town to the Elite Four. And because of this, I actually don't use Pikachu for very long, normally ditching him right after the second gym badge, which is Misty. Pallet Town. Pallet Town hasn't changed too much in Yellow version. One of the bigger differences though is when you try to walk out of the town to the north and Professor Oak stops you, he'll actually catch the Pikachu you end up using, so that's kinda neat. There's also a blurb in the book about your rival's first Pokemon, which is an Eevee, and the conditions that will determine what it will evolve into, which is either a Vaporeon, Jolteon, or Flareon. So if you lose the first battle with your rival in Professor Oak's lab, it'll become a Vaporeon. If you win the lab battle, and also win the battle with Gary next to Viridian City, it'll become a Jolteon. And then finally, if you win the lab battle, but if you skip over or lose the battle with Gary next to Viridian City, then it will become a Flareon. The interesting aspects of this is that if you lose the battles early on or skip them, then your rival ends up with Vaporeon, which would be weak to Pikachu, so it's kind of like an easy mode. And if you win both battles, it'll become a Jolteon, which will actually resist Pikachu, so it makes the game just a tad bit harder. Viridian City. There isn't too much new going on here in Viridian City. It is worth noting that the Pokemon you can catch with the fishing rod has changed. Now you can catch Poliwags, whereas before you could only catch Tentacool. Seems pretty logical to me, since Tentacool you would associate with the ocean because it's a jellyfish, and Poliwag is more of a pond creature, and Viridian City is definitely not on the ocean, so good job, Game Freak. Good logical choice. We all approve. Or at least I approve. Hopefully you guys approve. Let me know if you approve. The other big change is actually the Pokemon catching tutorial guy, which is the infamous guy who's tipped over and is drunk in the Japanese version and is just mad for coffee in the Western versions of the game. In Pokemon Red and Blue, after you did Oak's delivery, he would actually teach you how to catch a wild Pokemon, and during his demonstration he would just throw a ball and instantly catch the Pokemon. Whereas now in Yellow version, he actually throws the ball and the Pokemon breaks out of the ball and then walks off saying he has to go to the Pokemart. So kind of a neat thing. This actually makes the tutorial a little more accurate because it reflects the fact that you probably shouldn't just lob balls at wild Pokemon expecting to catch them. You really need to be weakening them first. And it also kind of hints that, hey, you need to go to the Pokemart to get more balls if you run out. It's also worth noting, if you talk to him again, you can actually view the tutorial a second time, and he will actually succeed the second time. The rival battle to the west of Viridian City has also been changed. Before, he used to have a Pidgey and his starter, and now he has a Spearow and his starter, which is an Eevee. Just a little change to spice things up. The other big addition to this route, which is Route 22, is that you can now catch Mankeys here. Mankey, obviously being a fighting type, would be good against Brock. And in my opinion, in Yellow version, it's very essential, because I don't know how else you're going to easily take care of Brock's rock-type Pokemon. Your only real option, since your starter has to be Pikachu, is the Mankey, or probably evolving a Butterfree or something, since Butterfree could learn Confusion, which would do some okay damage. Moving north to Route 2, which is the route right before Viridian Forest, this. You can actually now catch Nidorans on this route, both male and female, which wasn't possible before. Viridian Forest. The forest isn't changed too much. In yellow version, you can only catch Caterpie, no Weedles, and Pikachu is no longer catchable here either. And they've also added Pidgeotto, Pewter City. The big highlight of Pewter City is Brock and his Pokemon. They've actually been reduced in level just slightly. You can see that both Geodude and Onix have had 2 levels shaved off them. This helps make the lead up to the Brock fight slightly less grindy. Route 3. This is the route to the east of Pewter City, leading up to Mount Moon. Not much going on here. Just wanted to point out the fact that Jigglypuff can no longer be acquired, which historically was kind of the iconic area where you could first get a Jigglypuff. And you can get Sandshrew here, which was actually a blue version exclusive Pokemon prior to this. Mount Moon. This is the first location where you will see one of the other major changes of this game, and that's the Team Rocket encounter within Mount Moon. Team Rocket in this game actually has the villains from the anime running around, so Jesse, James, and they have a Meowth as a Pokemon that they fight with, along with their iconic buddies, Ekans and Koffing. You will fight this duo a couple times throughout the game, which is pretty neat. Cerulean City. Get Bulbasaur. In Pokemon Yellow, you can actually get all 3 starters that were in Red and Blue, so that's Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander. And Cerulean City just happens to be where Bulbasaur can be acquired. There's a lady in one of the houses who will give you Bulbasaur, as long as Pikachu likes you. Pikachu actually has a hidden counter in this game that gauges his relationship with you, the player, and it needs to be at the highest level in order for this person to give you the Bulbasaur. And what you ask is required to raise Pikachu's friendship? Please refer to this beautiful chart, courtesy of Cerebi.net. Things that will make Pikachu happy: using an item, leveling it up, using battle against a gym leader, and then finally things that will reduce its friendship level with you. Placing Pikachu in a box, letting Pikachu get the shit beat out of it in battle, and trading away your best friend with a staggering minus 255 points. And the pro tip I can offer to get Bulbasaur this early in the game, because your Pikachu probably isn't going to be friendly enough with you yet, is to just spam potions on Pikachu outside of battle. The game itself will actually tell you it can't use the potion because Pikachu's at maximum health, but it will still increase the friendship level of Pikachu. Probably not intentional, probably a bug, but it works. Pretty much everything else in Cerulean City is the same. The battle with Misty is identical. One thing I will point out though that's true for all Pokemon centers is there's now a Chansey helping out the nurse inside. Again, just making the game feel more like the anime. Moving along north to Route 24 and 25. This is where the Nugget Bridge is and you fight your rival. Past all the Nugget Bridge battles, there's a guy who will give you a Charmander, and there's no conditions for it, he'll just give it to you, unlike the Bulbasaur. I'm not gonna go over every change to where Pokemon can and can't be acquired in this game. I'm just gonna highlight kind of the bigger ones. The standouts for these routes is that you cannot catch Abra here anymore, which in Red and Blue this was the first location where you had the opportunity to catch one. But you can catch both Oddish and Bellsprout, which back in Blue and Red, each version could only catch one or the other. You can also catch Venonats here, which you also could not catch at all in the other games at this location. Route 5. This is the route with the daycare on it, and is also the first place where you can now catch both Jigglypuff and Abra. Vermilion City. Get Squirtle. This is where you can get Squirtle in this game, but only after you beat Lieutenant Surge. They did remove the trade for Farfetch'd here, where you used to be able to trade a Spearow for one, and they replaced it with nothing. The battle with Lieutenant Surge has been changed pretty heavily, again to reflect the anime more closely.
Hey baby, you ready to take a beating?
Instead of having 3 Pokemon, which were Voltorb, Pikachu, and Raichu, he now only has 1, which is a Raichu, and they just increase its level all the way up to level 28, which is actually pretty high for this point in the game, but because there is only 1 Pokemon, it is actually an easier fight, in my opinion. Diglett's Cave, still full of Diglets. Sleeping Snorlax, still sleeping. SS Anne, still sailing away. Toot 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 toot. Toot toot. Routes 9 and 10. These are the ones leading up to Rock Tunnel over by the power plant. You can catch both Machop and Magnemite over here, but they have removed Voltorb, Sandshrew, and Ekans. The Rock Tunnel, still dark. Celadon City. You can still get an Eevee here just like you could in Red and Blue, which means you can actually use your rival's own Pokemon against them. The Game Corner now has different prizes available. Vulpix being a standout, this is the only way to get him in this game. They added Wigglytuff for some reason. Both Scyther and Pinsir are available, whereas before it was one or the other in red and blue. And then Porygon is still the top prize. The battle with Erica has been changed, with Victreebel and Vileplume both being downgraded to Weepinbell and Gloom instead. But the levels of her Pokemon have been increased to balance it out a little. In the Game Corner hideout, you'll actually fight Jessie and James for the second time. Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town is mostly the same, except you do fight Jessie and James again on the top floor of this tower. Saffron City. Sabrina is completely unhinged in this game. She now has a level 50 Abra, Kadabra, and Alakazam. Good luck, my Poke friends. Silphco. At this point of looking through the book, I actually laughed a little at this blurb. Be wary of the bald guy on the 5th floor. He's the only one to use the psychic types. Alakazam. And Mr. Mime. If there's a Pokemon on your front line with low HP, it'll be knocked out pretty quick. I don't know what Nintendo Power has against bald guys, but damn, that's harsh. And also it cracks me up because their picture here has a Kadabra in it, whereas they specifically say Alakazam in their little paragraph. So which is it, Tell me, Nintendo Power, the people need to know. The final battle with Jessie and James is here. Your rival by this point has evolved his starter and now has a Cloyster, Kadabra, Ninetales, and a Sandshrew for some reason in his party. Back on the road to Route 12. This is the route south of Lavender Town. There's quite a few changes to the wild Pokemon that you can catch here, including the fact that you can now catch Farfetch'd, which was not catchable in the wild at all previously. You can catch Slowpokes and Slowbros, and you can actually fish for Horsies here. Routes 13, 14, and 15. Pretty much the same changes as were made to Route 12, with the only other big change being the lack of Ditto. You can no longer catch him here at all. You could say this is Ditto pointing. Fuchsia City. Koga now has an army of Venonats for some reason, and one Venomoth. This probably has something to do with the anime, but I do not remember him having an army of Venonats. Safari Zone. Oh boy, the Safari Zone. I'm gonna cover this quickly. There were a lot of changes made to the Safari Zone, but most of the Pokemon stayed the same, and instead they just moved them around in which areas you could catch them, and what the encounter rates are. The only real big noticeable changes are that you can now catch Dragonairs with a fishing rod. Tangela was added into the Safari Zone, and our cute little buddy Cubone here was added as well. Routes 16, 17, and 18. You can now catch Ponyta wandering around over in the cycling road areas of the game, and you can fish up some Shelders as well. They definitely tried to make some of the water Pokemon more available earlier in the game, Shelder, Horsey, etc., but I don't really feel like they achieved their desired goal. The biggest issue with Gen 1 fishing is all the fishing rods that are better than the old rod are not available until pretty late into the game. So if they really wanted you to be able to catch these water Pokemon earlier, they should have allowed you to get at least one of the other two fishing rods earlier in the game. The Power Plant. Pikachu and Raichu are no more. Grammar and Muck have been added, probably a reference to the episode from the anime, featuring them and Magnemite. And sadly, Electabuzz is not in this game at all. But Mr. Zappy Boy here is still hanging out. Unobtainable Pokemon. For some reason at this point in the guide, Nintendo Power decided this is where they wanted to mention all the Pokemon that you cannot catch in Yellow. They include Weedle, Kakuna, Beedrill, Ekans, Arbok, Meowth, Persian, Coughing, Wheezing, Electabuzz, Magmar, and Jinx. Kinda interesting to point out is that all of the Pokemon that Team Rocket uses in the anime are in this list. Seafoam Island. I just wanted to mention the Seafoam Island because I felt like giving Articuno a shout out for being so cool. Cinnabar Island. Blaine's team has been changed up slightly, making this battle just a little more challenging. The Pokemon Mansion on Cinnabar Island has Ditto inside of it now. The weeds south of Pallet Town no longer have Tangelas inside of them. For the final gym battle against Giovanni, his team has been changed up, mostly just with level increases, and the inclusion of a Persian, once again bringing things closer to the anime. Victory Road. Thank you, Moltres, for being you. We all love you, you groovy flaming chicken. Indigo Plateau. The Pokemon of the Elite Four have not changed. Your rival, however, has an almost completely different team in this game. He will always have a Sandslash, Alakazam, and Execute, with the other three Pokemon determined by what his EV was turned into. The Unknown Dungeon. The layout of the Unknown Dungeon has been completely changed in Yellow, along with the majority of the Pokemon that can be encountered there. Lickitung being one of the bigger standouts. But for all the changes, one thing does stay the same, and that's the the epic encounter with Mewtwo at the very end. In-game trading. This handy page goes over all the in-game trades. I don't want to go over all these in detail just because it's kind of boring, but just know that they did change up most of the trades, either getting rid of them or changing up what is offered. Pokemon abilities. Pretty standard for most Pokemon players' guides. In the back is a list of all of the abilities each Pokemon can learn. I just want to highlight some of the changes to their movesets in the yellow version. Not going to touch on all of them because there is a lot, but there are a few things worth highlighting. Butterfree now learns Confusion at level 10 right when it evolves, rather than making you wait until level 12. This is obviously beneficial for the fight against Brock since it's so early in the game. Pikachu has been all kinds of messed up, with the biggest inclusions being that of Double Team, Slam, and Thunderbolt all into its move list. And the removal of Swift. Double Kick for both Nidorans was moved way earlier into their movesets. This way they could be learned in time for you to also evolve them into their final stage, and still have them learn Body Slam for Nidoqueen and Thrash for Nidoking. Primeape now learns Rage when it evolves, whereas before it couldn't learn the move at all. For Magnemite they decided to deny him Sonic Boom until level 21. In Red and Blue it just automatically knew this. Cubone now learns Headbutt at level 18. Tangela can now learn Vine Whip. Scyther now learns Wing Attack at level 50. The evolutions all have several major changes. Some of the highlights being Vaporeon now learns Aurora Beam at level 36. Jolteon learns Pin Missile 12 levels earlier at level 36. Yellow Extras. This final bit of the book goes over some of the miscellaneous additions to the game. If you link two yellow versions together, you have some additional competition options, where you can enter your Pokemon into one of the 3 special cups. Either the Poke Cup, the Pika Cup, or the Petite Cup, each with its own special rules for which Pokemon are allowed in the battles. And then last but not least, Pikachu Summer Beach. This is the origin of the Surfing Pikachu. You can play a mini game with a Surfing Pikachu if you visit a house on the beach south of Fuchsia City, but you need to have a Pikachu in your party that knows Surf. The only way to get a Pikachu with Surf in Generation 1 was to teach it the move using the Pokemon Stadium game, and then transfer it back to your Game Boy cartridge. And there we have it. Those are the changes in Pokemon Yellow version. If you like this video and you haven't already, please consider checking out my Pokemon Crystal video as well. I never played this version of the game when I was a kid, so my first real experience with it was when it was re-released for the 3DS. That being said, for those of you who did play it back in the day when it first came out, I'd be curious to know what your memories are of this game. As always though, I appreciate your support, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you, and bye-bye.